Hi everyone. Thursday morning, we've got John with us. Hi John, how are you doing, sir? And thank you for joining us today.
Good morning. Great to be here.
Pleasure. The pleasure is all mine. I know it's a difficult time of the year, closing things, but still, John, you've spent you agreed to spend this time with us. We can't be more grateful, I would say, and thank you for spending your time with us today. Quick introduction: who John is. John is one of the individuals with whom I can relate a lot because he comes from a very similar background like mine. So John has spent almost 3 decades in technology, spending ton of years in consulting. He was with KPMG for almost 4.5 years. Now, Chief Information Officer, CIO of Hudson Valley Credit Union. Uh, I would say close to being neighbor. John is also in New York. I'm also in New York, so we are close to being neighbors. Uh, John, I know I didn't do a half our justice introducing you. I just tried doing a primer. If you want to maybe quickly peel the onion and talk about your background a bit, that would be fantastic.
Great. Absolutely. Happy to do so. And thanks for having me again. So, yes, I've been in technology for about a little over 30 years now. Time goes very fast. I was in the public sector to start my career with the federal government for about 7 years with the Department of Agriculture. And from there, I migrated into private sector, realizing the public sector probably wasn't the right fit for me personally. Spent 15 years with a media and publishing company, and John Wiley and Sons, publicly traded. Went to KPMG for 4.5 years. And then from there, made my journey into the credit union industry. Started with a credit union out in Colorado, spent about 4 years there, really fell in love with the industry and just the purpose and mission of credit unions. And when the opportunity arose to come out to New York and be the CIO here at Hudson Valley, I jumped at the opportunity. I was happy for the career progression and was also very happy to stay in the credit union industry. Had been involved in a lot of varied um, projects, initiatives, and I've really witnessed a lot of transformation just across technology in general. Having been in technology for over 30 years, I've seen a lot of changes over that time. So it really has been an interesting journey, and I'm very excited to kind of land it here and be with Hudson Valley.
That's fantastic, John. Uh, Now coming to a cliched question, you might not like, you might hate me for that, but still, I want to ask you one question. Since you did technology at one of the larger credit unions, I know, hate me for that. But let's talk about priorities with a pinch of salt, obviously. So, what are your top priorities for maybe next year?
So when we think about priorities, I'm going to peel it back to actually when I started, and I think it's a journey that a lot of credit unions either are going through or need to go through, which is really transforming into more of an enterprise organization from a technology standpoint. Having been in the credit union industry now for, I guess, a grand total of about 6 or 7 years, I've seen a lot of credit unions who operate in a very credit union technology platform and ecosystem, and that works really great and has worked really great over time. But as we move forward, we really need to transform our technology environments and evolve our technology environments to be more mature and to be more enterprise in nature. And so my journey here has really been to mature our enterprise organization. So when I look at sort of priorities where we are right now, it's continuing that maturation in cybersecurity, in our technology platforms, but then also layering innovation on top of that. If you're not able to build that solid foundation, then your innovation kind of stagnates because there's nothing good to build on. So some of the big initiatives that we have going on right now involve um, basically transforming our data warehouse, going to a cloud, going from a homegrown solution in our data environment to a cloud-based solution in our data environment. And that's critical because we really are focused in on driving more artificial intelligence and getting more artificial intelligence expertise and use cases running here. But if you do not have solid data underpinning AI, it's challenging to do that. So that's sort of one of our first steps to doing that. Um, adding in more automation. We've grown a lot. I mean, when I joined, Hudson Valley was, I want to say, probably around 6 billion in assets, give or take, and now we're a little over 8 billion in assets. We've gone from
Yep.
20 branches to 40 branches, and so with that comes scale. And if you don't want to continue to have your expenses grow linearly with your growth of your organization, you need to have automation and other items like that. So we're putting in a lot of RPA and other automation initiatives to help drive down some of our operating expenses. So it's really focusing on maturity, automation, data, and innovation. Those are our big four sort of channels of priorities when we look at the next 12 months.
I see. I see. That's very well put in, right? I mean, those should be a priority. You're doing the right job, for the lack of better words. Let's talk about defining a modern technology strategy because, I mean, I just casually threw it in before the podcast, John, that uh, technology strategy is not buying fancy objects from the market and then figuring out how to plumb them into the ecosystem. You should have proper roadmap and using them because that's where the credit unions have struggled the most. I mean, both of us know. I mean, both of us come from the outside world. So, how do you define a modern technology strategy for a credit union today?
So start to define our modern technology strategy, and actually myself and my head of enterprise architecture just gave a presentation of our current technology strategy to our executive team 2 days ago. Looking at 26, we do that annually with our leadership team here. And the strategy is really built on some principles, and what we want to do from a technology standpoint. So for us, we buy, overbuild, we look at enterprise platforms, we look at extensibility. Those are some critical key components and principles that we build upon. And then when we look at our strategy, it's really partnering with our business, looking at the industry at large, looking at the industry outside of credit unions. Being in a credit union for a while, there's sometimes a little bit of an insular environment to credit unions where they focus within the credit union sphere a lot. And that's important because you need to understand what credit union challenges they're facing and how they're being solved inside the credit unions. But to really be effective in the technology space, you need to look beyond sort of the four walls of the credit union industry and look at what's happening at large in the industry and weaving that in, bringing that back to our business lines to help identify where their challenges are, where the industry's going, and putting together a roadmap that then talks through what are we solving. And so our technology strategy kind of aligned to what my priorities were I just talked about, right? Cyber, business platforms, cloud, innovation. Like these are all components of strategy. And we build generally a 3 year roadmap from that. Usually the first 12 to 18 months is pretty solid. And the next 12 to 18 months after that is a little bit more loose as we kind of look how it evolves over time. Those are the critical components. And we want to socialize. Like I said, we just talked 2 days ago and presented this. And one of the main reasons is to socialize that with our partners so that if there are questions, challenges, or ways they'd like to influence our strategy, we can weave that in because it's really important for technology to not lead the organization, but not be on the backside of the organization just receiving requests. My goal is always to be a partner with our business, standing shoulder to shoulder as we look to move forward.
I mean, that's the way how should technology ecosystems be? Because, I mean, whenever I talk to CTOs or CIOs or head of data, we are not doing science experiments, right? We are enabling the business to do a better job and enabling improved experience for our consumers across all channels. That's what that's what the end goal is. So what you talked about is partnering with business, and that's what your objective. I think that's table stakes now, right? So John, that's great to hear from a leader like you.
I would just add, I mean,
Yeah.
in my 30 years, I've seen many technologists who fall in love or get very enamored with technology solutions without understanding business application for them. And then they become disjointed from their business partners. And even though they're very passionate and they want the best things possible, there becomes a disconnect between the technology organization and business as a result, because the technology becomes the most important thing to the IT organization And at the heart of it, it's the business that's the most important, not the technology itself.
Exactly, right. I mean, you have to understand that you're not building the next Netflix, right? You're building or helping a financial institution do a better job and serve its consumers well. And technology is at the center, at the core, but again, with one focus of helping or enabling your business partners do a better job. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Absolutely, that's so well taken. Let's talk about balance, right? We talked about now maintaining the balance. So, how do you balance innovation with risk? Because these are two different paradigms, right? So, how do you want to talk about that?
Sure. I mean, I think it's important that you have a very close partnership between your technology organization and your risk organization in whatever form that takes in your org. Um, it's important that as you start to think about new directions, new technologies, that you build the governance rails at the start. As an example, what we're doing now is we're bringing on board a chief AI officer, and we're going to drive a lot of AI. That's our goal. But what we have in flight right now is an effort to essentially build out our AI governance, to put the governance in place in the beginning. It's a lot easier to do that at the start than try to do that later. So that, in my mind, that's a lot of our balance, right? Is to make sure we have sort of those guardrails loose enough to be, the guardrails are loose enough so that we can be innovative and move fast, but keep us from, drifting into areas where we should not be. And that involves partnering with our risk and information security professionals so that as we look at innovation, they're in at the ground floor, because I've seen in my past a number of initiatives get all the way out to their finished product, and then security kind of takes issue with what's been built, and then there's a lot of rework after the fact. You come in early with that, and you wind up with a better product at the end without having to do that rework that I was mentioning.
Yep, that is much required. Now let's talk about let's talk about John now. We spoke a lot about credit unions and data and technology. Let's talk about you. Let's do some fun. Uh, let's talk about your leadership principles, right? Uh, what leadership principles, John, usually do guide you, right? While you build and develop teams, because you've been building teams and developing teams for more than 3 decades now, right, in technology. So, do you have any specific leadership principles that you follow? These are like table stakes. Without them, nothing happens.
Well, I think that I really look for a few qualities with anybody that's going to join the team. That I think if you have these qualities in an individual, um, in all the individuals in particular, you'll have a high functioning team. And those are accountability, initiative, ownership, and collaboration. I think that if you can combine those four areas, those four qualities in anybody, then at that point you have a team that will work well together and will really drive forward in a positive way. And my goal, for my goal as a leader, is to really make sure that I'm moving obstacles out of people's way, and I'm giving them the development opportunities and the professional opportunities to grow as a professional. I've said this to my team when I first joined here. My goal is to make you marketable, to give you the skills and the experiences that if you decide you don't want to be here anymore, which I hope is never the case, but if that
Yep.
happens, somebody else will want you to join their org because you have a lot of value to bring. And so I look at the relationship between, myself and my team is it's a partnership, right? They're giving me their best. I'm giving them our best and developing them. It's not a transactional relationship. It's a partnership between, professionals. And I like to grow people. I like to challenge them. I like to make sure I speak with them on a regular basis. I'm really strongly believe in clear and consistent communication, direct one-on-one conversations. I think it's important. I think messaging, being clear, being understood, and giving people the opportunities to thrive is the best way to really grow your team.
Yep. So I think that's much needed. I mean, I agree to it 100%. I also follow the same ethos or principles in leadership. So that's absolutely agreed. let's maybe take a crystal ball, right? I mean, I hate doing it, but still, I talk about emerging technologies because, I mean, I was bullish about AI. I am bullish about AI. I was bullish about AI 10 years back. I am still. But let's talk about your 2 cents. So, what do you think? I mean, which emerging technologies? It can be more than one, right? Do you believe will impact credit unions the most in the next few years?
Well, I think in my mind, there's two. One that's kind of already here. It's not quite emerging, and that's AI, right? You just talked about that. That's everywhere. But I do think that there's a lot to do in AI in terms of determining use cases and applications that work. Right now, it's very omnipresent. AI is everywhere. AI can do everything. And I think we're going to get narrowed down and more defined as we move forward. We're getting there, but we're not quite there yet. So I think that is going to be a real game changer. It's going to allow smaller players to compete with bigger players because you're going to have a magnifier with AI. So I think that's critical. But that's kind of already here. The other one is stablecoins. I think stablecoins. There's a lot of talk in the industry right now around that. And when I look at sort of use cases with stablecoins, the one that kind of stands out to me is really potential replacement of ACH with stablecoin. I think
Yeah.
I don't have a ton of detail on that at the moment, but what reading I have done in that space, that looks like it could be a real game changer as it evolves.
I 100% agree with that. I mean, that's use case even I'm very bullish about. Uh, Absolutely. So, John, last question in the interest of time, right? So, if you talk about any key lessons or learnings across your career that actually shaped your career or made the person you are today, right? If you were to share a few key lessons, what would those be?
Good question. I would say two key lessons from my standpoint, and they kind of intertwine with each other, right? If people want to kind of advance in their career, I think it's important that you make yourself known, because working hard and keeping your head down doesn't always pay off for everybody necessarily. So it is important that you get a bit of visibility. Um, but with that, I think the second piece of advice is also critical, which is be comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's how you grow. Taking new challenges, doing something that maybe you're not 100% sure on. That gives you the opportunity to learn your lessons. Potentially you fail, but you learn from those failures, and it makes you better than where you were before you started. So if you can be comfortable with being uncomfortable, that'll really open some doors for you going forward.
Yeah, that's a very good answer. So, John, again, thank you for your time today. I know it was a busy morning, but still you managed to do this for us. It was great having a conversation, sir. Again, thank you.
I appreciate the time. Great being on. Enjoy your holidays. Take care.
Thanks.